The morning sun cast golden ribbons across the marble floors of Hayes Manor, but Victoria Hayes felt nothing but cold dread seeping into her bones. She stood in her sister's bedroom, holding a letter that would change everything. The elegant handwriting belonged to Natalie, her older sister, the golden child who had always known exactly what she wanted. I cannot marry a broken man for money. Forgive me. Those 9 words had shattered their family's last hope. Victoria's hands trembled as she read the note again, searching for some hidden message, some clue about where Natalie had gone. But there was nothing. Just abandonment wrapped in expensive stationery. Victoria, we need to talk. Her father's voice came from the doorway. Robert Hayes looked 20 years older than he had just yesterday. His silver hair, usually perfectly styled, stood in disarray. The lines around his eyes had deepened into canyons of worry. Victoria turned to face him, the letter still clutched in her fingers. Behind her father stood her mother, Catherine, whose red-rimmed eyes told the story of a sleepless night spent crying. The family that had once commanded respect in every social circle now stood on the edge of complete destruction. The wedding is in 4 hours, Robert said, his voice hollow. The Thornton family has already transferred half the agreed amount. If we cancel now, we will not only lose that money but face legal action for breach of contract. The scandal alone would destroy us. Victoria knew the numbers. Her father's business ventures had collapsed after a series of bad investments and betrayals by trusted partners. The Hayes family owed millions to creditors who were circling like sharks. The marriage alliance with the Thornton family was supposed to save them. Christopher Thornton's father had agreed to clear their debts in exchange for a wife who would care for his damaged son. What are you suggesting? Victoria asked, though she already knew the answer. She could see it in her mother's desperate expression, in her father's defeated posture. Catherine stepped forward, reaching for her daughter's hand. You and Natalie have always looked alike. Same height, same dark hair, same features. With the right styling, the right preparation, you could take her place. The suggestion hung in the air like poison gas. Victoria pulled her hand away, pacing to the window. Below, workers were loading gifts into trucks, preparing for a celebration that might never happen. She thought about Christopher Thornton, the man she had only seen once at a charity event 6 months ago. He had stood in a corner, staring at nothing, occasionally mumbling to himself. His father had kept him close, steering him away from conversations. The brilliant businessman who had once run multiple companies had been reduced to a shell after a car accident that the tabloids had covered extensively. Some called it a tragedy. Natalie had called it an opportunity. I have seen him, Victoria said quietly. He can barely speak in complete sentences. The accident left him with permanent brain damage. You are asking me to marry a man who does not even know what day it is. We are asking you to save this family, Robert replied, his voice cracking. Christopher needs a caretaker. His father wants someone from a good family, someone trustworthy. We can provide that. And in return, we survive. Victoria closed her eyes. She had always been the quiet sister, the one who preferred books to parties, gardens to galas. While Natalie had schemed and calculated her way through life, Victoria had dreamed of simple things. A small house somewhere peaceful. Maybe a teaching job at a local school. Perhaps eventually falling in love with someone kind. Those dreams felt impossibly distant now. What about Christopher? She asked. Does he not deserve to know who he is really marrying? Catherine's expression hardened. That man can barely remember his own name from 1 hour to the next. His father makes all his decisions now. This arrangement benefits everyone. Christopher gets the care he needs, his father ensures the family legacy continues, and we avoid complete ruin. Victoria thought about her younger brother, Thomas, who was studying abroad. If the family collapsed, his education would end. She thought about the staff who had worked for them for decades. They would all lose their jobs. And she thought about her parents, who despite their flaws, had given her everything. "I need time to think," she said. "We have 2 hours," Robert replied. "The stylists are waiting. The dress has already been altered. Everything is ready. We just need your answer." Victoria walked to her sister's vanity, staring at her reflection in the ornate mirror. She saw a young woman of 25 with gentle features and honest eyes. Could she transform herself into Natalie? Could she maintain such a massive lie? A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. The family lawyer entered, carrying a thick folder. "I need to review the prenuptial agreement," he said grimly. "There are clauses about the validity of the marriage that must be understood." As the lawyer explained the legal requirements, Victoria felt the walls closing in. This was not just about pretending to be her sister at a wedding. This was about committing to an entire lifetime of deception. She would have to live as Natalie, take care of a mentally impaired man, and never reveal the truth. But what choice did she have? 2 hours later, Victoria stood in front of the mirror again. Professional makeup artists had transformed her face, sharpening her softer features to match Natalie's more angular beauty. Her hair had been styled into an elegant updo. The wedding dress, a stunning creation of silk and lace, fit perfectly after frantic alterations. She looked exactly like her sister. "It is time," Catherine whispered, adjusting the veil over Victoria's face. As they walked toward the waiting car, Victoria made her decision. She would do this for her family. She would marry Christopher Thornton, care for him as promised, and carry this secret to her grave. It was the right thing to do, the noble thing to do. She had no idea that the man waiting for her at the altar was the furthest thing from simple or broken. And she could not have imagined that her sacrifice would pull her into a dangerous world where nothing was as it seemed, where every smile hid a secret, and where the greatest deception was not hers at all. The car pulled away from Hayes Manor, carrying Victoria toward a future she could never have predicted. Behind her, in her sister's abandoned room, Natalie's letter lay forgotten on the floor. And ahead, at St. Catherine's Cathedral, Christopher Thornton waited with the patience of a man playing a very long game. The cathedral bells rang like a death knell as Victoria walked down the aisle on her father's arm. Through the delicate lace of her veil, she could see Christopher Thornton waiting at the altar. He stood perfectly still, his tall frame dressed in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit. Even from a distance, she could see the vacant expression that the tabloids had documented endlessly over the past 2 years. His father, William Thornton, stood beside him as both best man and guardian. The elderly businessman watched his son with a mixture of sadness and protective concern. The guest list was small, intimate, exactly what one would expect for a groom in Christopher's condition. Victoria recognized faces from high society, all wearing expressions of polite sympathy. As she reached the altar, Christopher turned to face her. His eyes were a striking gray, like storm clouds over the ocean. For just a moment, as their gazes met, Victoria saw something flicker in those depths. Recognition, perhaps. Or confusion. But it vanished so quickly she convinced herself it was her imagination playing tricks. "Pretty bride," Christopher said loudly, his voice carrying across the silent cathedral. Several guests shifted uncomfortably. "Very pretty. Like sunshine." William placed a gentle hand on his son's shoulder. "Yes, Christopher. Your bride is beautiful." The ceremony proceeded with careful choreography. The priest, clearly briefed about the groom's limitations, kept his words simple and direct. Christopher responded to each prompt, sometimes too loudly, sometimes barely audible. He fidgeted with his cufflinks. He stared at the stained glass windows. He smiled at nothing in particular. Yet when it came time to place the ring on Victoria's finger, his movements were steady and precise. No fumbling, no hesitation. The band slid into place perfectly, and for a brief second, his grip on her hand was firm and sure before returning to his loose, uncertain touch. "I do," Christopher declared when prompted, his voice suddenly clear and strong. Then, as if remembering himself, he giggled. I do. Victoria felt a chill run down her spine. Something was wrong with this picture, but she could not quite identify what. She spoke her own vows, words meant for her sister to say, and felt like a fraud with every syllable. The reception was held in the grand ballroom of the Thornton estate, a sprawling mansion overlooking the city. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing light across tables draped in cream silk. Everywhere Victoria looked, she saw wealth and elegance. This was the world Natalie had wanted, the world she had abandoned. Christopher sat beside her at the head table, occasionally making observations that ranged from childishly simple to oddly profound. He played with his food, stacking green beans into little towers. He laughed too loudly at jokes. He spilled wine on his shirt and seemed fascinated by the spreading stain. But then he would say something that made Victoria pause. The flower arrangements use exactly 47 roses, he announced to no one in particular. Prime number. Cannot be divided. Like promises. Victoria glanced at the centerpieces. She had not counted, but something told her he was exactly right. Throughout the afternoon, she noticed other inconsistencies. Christopher knocked over a water glass with apparent clumsiness, yet his hand shot out to catch it before it hit the floor with reflexes that seemed impossibly fast. He mispronounced simple words but correctly identified a rare vintage of champagne by scent alone, rattling off details about the vineyard and harvest year before his father gently redirected him. Time for the dance, William announced, helping his son to his feet. Christopher loves to dance. It is one thing that still brings him joy. Victoria expected to be led in a clumsy shuffle around the floor. Instead, Christopher pulled her into a perfect waltz hold. His posture was impeccable, his leading confident and smooth. They moved across the floor with a grace that made guests stop their conversations to watch. 1 2 3, 1 2 3, Christopher counted loudly like a child learning the steps. But his feet moved with practiced ease, guiding her through turns and flourishes that spoke of years of training. As they spun past a group of guests, Christopher leaned close to her ear. His breath was warm against her skin, and when he spoke, his voice lost all trace of childishness. "You are not Natalie," he whispered, so quietly only she could hear. "Your perfume is different. Lavender instead of jasmine." And Natalie's eyes were blue, not brown. Victoria's heart stopped. She missed a step, stumbling, but Christopher caught her effortlessly. His face remained blank, that same vacant smile in place. But his words hung in the air between them, impossible to dismiss. Before she could respond, he was counting again, loudly, drawing attention back to their dance. 1 2 3, 1 2 3. Dancing is fun. Wife is pretty. The moment passed so quickly that Victoria wondered if she had imagined it. But the rest of the reception became torture as she watched Christopher more carefully. Every gesture seemed calculated. Every mistake appeared deliberate. He was performing, she realized with growing certainty. But for whom, and why? As evening fell, William approached Victoria with apologetic kindness. "Christopher tires easily. His nurse will help him prepare for bed. You need not worry about any marital duties tonight. We understand this is an unusual arrangement." Relief and confusion warred within Victoria. She nodded, grateful for the reprieve, even as questions multiplied in her mind. The Thornton mansion had a west wing that had been prepared as the newlyweds' private quarters. Victoria's belongings, carefully selected to match Natalie's taste, had already been moved into the spacious bedroom. Everything was cream and gold, elegant and expensive. A gilded cage, she thought. She had just finished changing into a silk nightgown when she heard a noise from the adjoining room. Christopher's bedroom. Through the connecting door, she could hear movement. Then voices, low and urgent. Victoria crept closer, pressing her ear against the door. The surveillance confirmed it, a man's voice said. Not William. Someone younger. They are watching the east entrance. 3 men, possibly armed. They know something changed. Let them watch, Christopher replied. His voice was completely different now. Clear, intelligent, commanding. They expected Natalie, but they got Victoria instead. That works in our favor. Sir, with respect, she is an unknown variable. We did not plan for this substitution. Life rarely follows the plan, Thomas. We adapt. Victoria seems genuinely ignorant of her sister's activities. That makes her either very innocent or very dangerous. Either way, we need to determine which before our enemies do. Victoria's blood ran cold. Thomas was her brother's name, but that was impossible. Thomas was studying abroad. And what did Natalie's activities have to do with anything? What about the Hayes family? Thomas asked. They orchestrated the switch to save themselves financially. Christopher laughed, and it was nothing like his childish giggles from earlier. This laugh was dark, calculated. The Hayes family are pawns who do not even know what game they are playing. Natalie involved them in something far beyond debt and society marriages. The question is whether Victoria knows about her sister's real agenda. And if she does? A long pause. Victoria held her breath. Then she is either our greatest ally or our deadliest threat. Time will tell which. For now, we continue the performance. Tomorrow, I will take my dear wife on our honeymoon. Away from prying eyes, we will see what truths emerge. Footsteps approached the connecting door. Victoria scrambled backward, her mind racing. She barely made it to the bed before the door opened. Christopher stood in the doorway, wearing silk pajamas, his hair mussed. The vacant expression had returned to his face. Wife still awake? He asked, his voice childlike again. Christopher cannot sleep. Bad dreams about the accident. He shuffled into the room, moving with uncertain steps. But Victoria had heard him just moments ago, speaking with complete clarity and confidence. This was an act. All of it was an act. Come sit, she heard herself say, patting the bed beside her. She needed to understand what was happening. Who was this man she had married? Christopher sat, leaving a respectful distance between them. He picked at the embroidered pattern on the bedspread, humming tunelessly. Wife is kind, he said. Nicer than other wife was supposed to be. Natalie was mean. Christopher heard her talking to father. She called Christopher broken. But Victoria does not seem mean. The words were simple, delivered in that childish cadence. But they revealed that Christopher, or whoever he really was, knew about the switch. He knew everything. I am sorry your feelings were hurt, Victoria said carefully, testing the waters. No one should be called broken. Christopher looked at her then, and for just a heartbeat, she saw the mask slip. Intelligence, calculation, and something else. Curiosity, perhaps. Or evaluation. Wife should sleep, he said, standing abruptly. Big day tomorrow. Honeymoon trip. Christopher likes boats. We go on boat tomorrow. He shuffled back to his room, closing the connecting door behind him. Victoria heard the lock click into place. She sat in the dark, her mind spinning. Christopher Thornton was not brain damaged. The accident, the symptoms, everything was a carefully constructed lie. But why? What was he hiding from? And what did her sister Natalie have to do with it? More terrifying was the realization that she had just married a man who was far more dangerous than any damaged millionaire. She had walked into a trap disguised as a rescue. And somewhere out there, men were watching, waiting for something. Victoria looked at the wedding ring on her finger, its diamond catching the moonlight. She had thought she was sacrificing herself to save her family. Instead, she had become a piece in a game she did not understand, married to a man who was either a genius or a monster. Possibly both. As she finally drifted into uneasy sleep, one thought kept circling through her mind. If Christopher's condition was fake, what else about this entire situation was a lie? And more importantly, how could she survive long enough to find out the truth? Outside her window, in the shadows of the Thornton estate gardens, 3 figures watched the darkened bedroom. They spoke into radios, reporting to someone unseen. The game, whatever it was, had entered its next phase. And Victoria Hayes, the quiet sister who had only wanted a simple life, was now at the center of something that would test every ounce of courage she possessed. The morning sun broke through the curtains like an unwelcome intruder. Victoria woke with a start, her heart pounding from dreams filled with whispered conversations and watching eyes. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back. She was Victoria Thornton now, married to a man who was playing the most dangerous game she had ever witnessed. A soft knock at the door made her sit up quickly. A woman in her 50s entered, carrying a breakfast tray. Her kind face was framed by gray hair pulled into a neat bun. "Good morning, Mrs. Thornton. I am Margaret, the head housekeeper. Mr. Thornton asked me to bring you breakfast and help you pack for the honeymoon trip." Victoria accepted the tray with thanks, noting how Margaret's eyes studied her carefully. How many people in this household knew the truth? How many were part of whatever Christopher was orchestrating? "Where exactly are we going?" Victoria asked, trying to sound casual. Margaret smiled. "To the family yacht. 3 days at sea. Very private, very peaceful. Mr. Thornton always calms down near the water. It helps with his condition." The way Margaret said "condition" made Victoria wonder if the housekeeper knew it was all pretend. But her expression remained professionally neutral. An hour later, Victoria found herself in a luxury car heading toward the marina. Christopher sat beside her, staring out the window with that same blank expression. He hummed quietly, occasionally pointing at birds or clouds like a child on a road trip. But his hand rested on the seat between them, and twice during the drive, his fingers tapped a deliberate pattern. Not random fidgeting. Morse code, Victoria realized with a chill. She did not know Morse code, but she recognized the purposeful rhythm. The Thornton yacht was not a boat. It was a floating palace. The sleek white vessel stretched over 200 feet, with multiple decks and enough luxury to rival any 5-star hotel. The name painted on the hull read "Silent Hunter." "Welcome aboard, sir," the captain greeted them. He was a weathered man in his 60s with sharp eyes that lingered on Victoria for a moment too long. "Everything is prepared as you requested." Christopher clapped his hands with childlike excitement. "Boat. Christopher loves boat. Can we see dolphins? Dolphins are smart. Smarter than sharks. Sharks are mean." As they boarded, Victoria noticed the crew. 6 people total, all moving with military precision. These were not ordinary yacht staff. They carried themselves like trained operatives, constantly scanning their surroundings. The master cabin was stunning, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic ocean views. But Victoria barely noticed the luxury. She was too focused on Christopher, who had suddenly stopped his childish act the moment the cabin door closed. He moved to the windows, his posture completely changed. Straight, confident, commanding. When he turned to face her, his eyes held none of their earlier vacancy. "We can speak freely now," he said in that clear, intelligent voice she had heard through the door. "The cabin is soundproof and regularly swept for surveillance devices." Victoria's throat went dry. "Who are you?" Christopher smiled, but it held no warmth. "I am exactly who you married. Christopher Thornton, son of William Thornton, heir to Thornton Industries. But the brain damage, the accident, all of that is a carefully maintained fiction." "Why?" The question came out as barely a whisper. He gestured for her to sit, then settled into the chair across from her. 2 years ago, I discovered something. Thornton Industries was being used to launder money for a criminal organization. Not just any organization. The kind that has connections everywhere. Politicians, judges, businessmen. My own board of directors was infiltrated. Victoria's mind raced. So you faked the accident? I staged it, Christopher corrected. The car crash was real enough to be convincing, but controlled. I needed to appear harmless, useless. Someone not worth killing while I worked behind the scenes to gather evidence and identify everyone involved. And Natalie? Victoria asked, though she dreaded the answer. Christopher's expression darkened. Your sister was recruited by them 6 months ago. They needed someone close to me, someone who could monitor my condition, ensure I remained truly incapacitated. The marriage arrangement was their idea, pushed through carefully manipulated business channels to my father. Natalie was supposed to be their eyes and ears in my home. The room seemed to tilt. Victoria gripped the armrests of her chair. But she ran away. Yes, and that created a problem for them. They lost their inside person. Then you appeared, an unexpected substitution. Christopher leaned forward, his gray eyes intense. So here is my question, Victoria. Are you working with them? Did you and Natalie plan this switch to throw me off guard? No. Victoria stood abruptly, anger flooding through her. I knew nothing about any of this. My sister abandoned our family. We were facing financial ruin. I took her place to save my parents from bankruptcy and legal destruction. That is all. Christopher studied her for a long moment. I believe you, he finally said. Your reactions have been genuine. The fear, the confusion, the way you watched me yesterday trying to make sense of inconsistencies. You are not a trained operative. You are just a woman caught in a terrible situation. Victoria sank back into her chair, her legs suddenly weak. What happens now? Now we have a choice, Christopher said. I can arrange for you to disappear. New identity, new life, far from all of this. Your family's debts will still be cleared. You will be safe. Or? Victoria asked, because she could hear the alternative hanging in the air. Or you help me. Christopher stood, moving to a panel on the wall. He pressed his palm against it, and a hidden compartment opened, revealing screens and equipment. Natalie's disappearance has made them nervous. They have people watching my estate, trying to determine if you are a threat or an opportunity. If you help me maintain the deception, if you play the role of the loyal wife caring for her impaired husband, we can use their uncertainty against them. Victoria stared at the hidden technology. You want me to be bait? I want you to be my partner, Christopher corrected. Victoria, these people have destroyed lives, corrupted systems, and killed anyone who threatened them. They hurt your family financially as part of their scheme to place Natalie in my household. Your father's business failures were not accidents. They were orchestrated attacks. The words hit like physical blows. What? Christopher pulled up files on one of the screens. Victoria saw her father's face, documents, financial records. 6 months ago, they identified the Hayes family as potential assets. Your social standing, your reputation for integrity, your desperate financial situation. Perfect targets. They systematically sabotaged your father's investments, driving him toward bankruptcy, all to make him desperate enough to agree to any marriage arrangement. Victoria felt sick. Everything her family had suffered was deliberate. Manufactured. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know the truth. And because I need you to make an informed choice. Christopher closed the screen, turning back to her. If you walk away, I will not blame you. This is not your fight. But if you stay, if you help me, we can stop them. We can protect your family and countless others from becoming victims. Victoria looked at this man who was technically her husband. 24 hours ago, she had thought she was marrying a brain-damaged millionaire out of family duty. Now she was being asked to help take down a criminal empire. The men watching the estate, she said slowly. If I leave, they will know something is wrong. They will go after my family. Christopher nodded grimly. Possibly. They play long games. They might wait, observe, try to determine what you know. Or they might decide to eliminate loose ends. So I am trapped either way. You were trapped the moment you put on that wedding dress, Christopher said softly. I am sorry, Victoria. Truly. You should not be in this position. But here we are. Victoria stood, walking to the windows. The yacht had left the marina, and now open ocean stretched in every direction. She thought about her parents, her brother Thomas, the staff at Hayes Manor. She thought about her sister Natalie, who had been recruited into something dark and had chosen to run rather than fight. She thought about the quiet life she had wanted. The simple dreams that now seemed impossibly naive. If I help you, she said, still facing the ocean, what exactly would I need to do? Christopher moved to stand beside her. Be yourself, mostly. The caring wife who looks after her impaired husband. Attend social functions with me. Listen to conversations. Help me identify who is watching, who is reporting back. Let them underestimate you because you are not Natalie. And if we succeed? If we actually gather enough evidence and expose these people? Then you get your life back. Your real life, not the one they tried to force you into. Your family will be safe. And maybe, eventually, you can find that simple happiness you were dreaming of. Victoria turned to face him. You searched my room at Hayes Manor, did you not? You know about my journals. Christopher had the grace to look slightly guilty. I needed to understand who you were. What you wanted. Whether you were a threat. She should have been angry. Instead, she felt oddly understood. This man, this stranger she had married under false pretenses, had taken the time to learn who she really was. I have one condition, Victoria said. Name it. Honesty. No more lies between us. If we are going to be partners in this, I need to know what is really happening. No more performances, no more deceptions when we are alone. Christopher extended his hand. Agreed. When it is just us, no masks. Victoria shook his hand, feeling the strength in his grip. Then I am in. Let us take down these people who hurt my family. A genuine smile crossed Christopher's face for the first time. Thank you, Victoria. I know this is asking everything of you. You said Natalie was mean, Victoria said suddenly. Earlier, when you were pretending. Was that true? Did she really call you broken? Christopher's smile faded. I heard recordings of her conversations. She saw me as a meal ticket, nothing more. The contempt in her voice was very real. Victoria felt a surge of protective anger. Then she is a fool. Brain damaged or genius, no one deserves to be spoken of that way. Something shifted in Christopher's expression. Surprise, perhaps. Or something deeper. You really mean that? I do. Victoria moved back to her chair, suddenly exhausted. So what is our first step? Christopher pulled up the screens again. We have 3 days on this yacht to prepare you. I need to teach you about the organization we are fighting. Their structure, their key players, their methods. You need to understand the danger we are in. For the next several hours, Christopher briefed Victoria on everything he had discovered. The criminal network called itself the Syndicate. It had infiltrated dozens of major corporations, using them to launder money, traffic illegal goods, and manipulate markets. The Thornton Industries connection was just one small part of their operation. Victoria learned about the key players. A businessman named Gregory Hale who ran the financial operations. A politician named Senator Patricia Drake who provided legal protection. And at the top, someone known only as the architect, whose true identity remained a mystery. Natalie was supposed to report directly to Hale, Christopher explained, showing her a photo of a distinguished man in his 50s. He would have been her handler. He is dangerous, Victoria. Ruthless. If he suspects you know anything, he will not hesitate to eliminate you. As the sun set over the ocean, Victoria felt the weight of what she had agreed to. This was not just about maintaining a deception. This was about surviving in a world where people killed to protect their secrets. I am scared, she admitted quietly. Christopher looked at her with respect. Good. Fear keeps you careful. Just remember, you are not alone in this. We face this together. That night, as Victoria lay in the master cabin, listening to the gentle rocking of the yacht, she thought about the strange turn her life had taken. She had married a stranger to save her family. Now she was partnering with that stranger to fight an invisible enemy. But as terrifying as it all was, Victoria felt something unexpected stirring in her chest. Purpose. For the first time in her life, she was not just the quiet sister in the background. She was becoming someone who fought back. Outside, beneath a canopy of stars, Christopher stood on the deck with Thomas, who turned out to be Christopher's head of security, not Victoria's brother. She agreed? Thomas asked. She did. And I believe she can handle this. Sir, with respect, she is a civilian. Untrained. She could get herself killed. Christopher stared out at the dark water. She is stronger than she knows. And she has something Natalie never had. A genuine heart. That makes her more dangerous to the syndicate than any trained operative. You are starting to care about her, Thomas observed. Christopher did not deny it. She deserves better than what life has given her. If we survive this, I intend to make sure she gets the future she dreamed of. Even if that future does not include me. Back in the cabin, Victoria had no idea that her pretend husband was already planning to set her free. She only knew that tomorrow, they would dock back at the marina, and the real performance would begin. The deadly game was about to enter its most dangerous phase. And Victoria Hayes Thornton, the quiet sister who had wanted nothing more than a simple life, was about to discover reserves of courage she never knew existed. The end.